heard folks mention using paradiddles on the bass to increase your ability to sort of get around the instrument with your right hand specifically. But I've never actually seen it done, and online I've never seen it sort of really discussed. So I think we're onto something neat here as we talk about paradiddles for two-finger control. Welcome to Learn Jazz Bass with Matt Rybicki. If you're interested in learning more, as you know, like, subscribe, check for the PDF below. So we're talking about paradiddles today, and para means to alternate between two hands for drummers. So the right or the left or right. And diddle is to repeat one of the hands. And so I'm applying this to fingers. So when we say para, we're talking about going from the first to the second or the second to the first. And diddle would be a repetition of one of those fingers. 1, 1, 2, 2, and so on. Sounds simple. There are a ton of combinations of how you can apply this basic sort of 4-bar pattern of alternate and repeat. There's a bunch of ways to start. There's a bunch of ways to put things in the middle. There's places to put emphasis on the things. There are ways to apply them to notes, and so on and so forth. It goes on and on and on. So what I strive to do in this particular exercise for all of us, because I'm still using it, is to try to help apply paradiddles practically to the bass. You might ask, why do we need to work on paradiddles? And some of it is a little bit obvious, but you know, when you think about it a little more, you'll find a variety of reasons. It certainly helps with fast tempos. Walking super fast is super easy, or is much easier with two fingers. Of course, it gives us control over our hand, which we always want. We want to know what our hand is doing. It gives us options in improvisational settings, so we can make quick choices about the notes we want to play and which fingers we're going to use for those. Additionally, it also helps when we're trying to play something that is written out for us. If it's something challenging or something fast, as I mentioned, having the ability to choose one finger or the other, or both, to play this thing you want to play can give you a lot more comfort in something that might be difficult. So those are a few reasons why we want to look at it. Now you'll notice that rather than right-left, RL, that they would use for drummers, what I've done is chosen basic icons, a square and a sort of cross or star for each finger. Instead of saying 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, I'm choosing these icons instead. I found the numbers really confusing when I was actually trying to read the exercises that I wrote out. Your mind sort of gets distracted by the numbers themselves. So a student of mine suggested removing the numbers, and I thought that's a brilliant idea. I find this works way better than the numbers. It helps me to really process the alternating and repeating things in a much easier way. Additionally, you'll see on the first part of the PDF, I've removed any note heads at all. Part of that is from my 7-year-old son, Miles, because I asked him, like, Miles, I'm trying to get this to look even better. How can I do that? And he just said, well, just take the notes away. And it kind of sounds like making up, but I swear he actually said that. And I was like, that makes so much sense. You know, like sometimes it's so obvious, right? A 7-year-old could do it. So I just made rhythmic notation for some of this, and you can certainly do that yourself and choose any note that you want to go in these rhythmic places. And they don't all have to be eighth notes either, of course. So on the first page of these basic paradiddles, you'll see the basic patterns from George Lawrence's Stick Control. This is a famous book for drummers where they work on rudiments, where they are working on that right-left thing. And so I have taken these first 24 that George has in this famous book, and I've applied them for us using these icons, thinking first and second finger. You'll see at the top of the page, I've assigned this kind of star as the first finger and the square as the second finger. This is entirely arbitrary, and you don't have to use that. And in fact, I don't use that in other exercises in this particular group of things. So it's really up to you. I just sort of did it, as I say, arbitrarily to give you an idea that you should assign one finger to one of the shapes. And you'll see we've got very simple things from just alternating to repeating and so on and so forth. So let's take a listen to a couple of them in depth and look very carefully at them in a very quick way. Let's look at number 4 first. Look at this pattern. And moving on, let's look at a different one, number 8. Check out the pattern in number 10. You'll notice number 16 is actually 2 measures long, and so you really need to expand your ability to keep your focus as you do this, and we should be repeating them many, many times, so it does require some brain power to do. Let's check out what number 16 sounds like. And again, I am just choosing an open string arbitrarily. You can choose any note, any combination of notes that you want. Let's take a closer look now at number 18, which is also 2 measures long. So for the next part of the PDF, what I've done is try to set up an environment where we can apply these patterns that we learned in the first part to actual sort of music, at least getting closer to music. So what I've done is laid out 4 sort of vehicles to put these patterns, these paradiddle patterns on top of. We've got a small number of open string exercises, some scales, 3 different scales. We've got a variety of arpeggios across all 4 strings, what I call pitch pivots from an earlier video. And then we've also got a sample of a Christian McBride walking line on Cherokee. So walking, arpeggios, scales, open strings to all put these patterns on top of. And you'll notice if you look further in the PDF, I've taken the first 7 of these basic examples from the first part from George Lawrence's book, and I have written them out for every single one of these exercises. 7 versions of open strings, 7 versions of scales, 7 versions of arpeggios, and so on. The idea is to sort of reduce one aspect of what we have to think about so that we can focus on our hand, but also provide a little bit of challenge because it gets tricky to think about a particular finger going with a particular note. So let's take a listen to some of the examples from the pattern number 4. So pattern number 4 from George Lawrence's book is a repetition, sort of a diddle followed by a diddle. Diddle, 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 essentially. And I've started with the square as the second finger and the cross as the first. And it gets pretty difficult when we go from the open strings to the other parts of this exercise. But the open strings are just basic. We're doing 8th notes on E, 8th notes on the A, D, G, and then going from E to A more quickly and a little more quickly and so on. So it provides a little bit of challenge. It gets more challenging when we introduce scales. We've got specific notes to go with specific fingers on this particular pattern, and that's going to change for the next pattern that we choose, for example. So let's take a listen to this first page of examples. Next, as I mentioned, I'm doing what I call pitch pivots. These are arpeggios laid out across all 4 strings. And let's take a listen to 3 quick examples of what I've got written out here. We've got F major 7, A flat major 7, and E minor 7. Now there's a lot here, and you don't have to repeat them one right after, go on from one bar to the next. You can just take one bar and repeat it over and over if you'd like. It took up a lot of real estate for me to put repeats on both sides of the bar, real estate on the page. So I just put a repeat at the beginning, repeat at the end. You're welcome to repeat them at will or whatever you'd like to do. It is an interesting challenge to try to go from one bar to the next because the chords don't have any sort of logic to them at all. They're really random. So here's me trying to go from one to the next, and I made it through a few measures. And finally, in these examples, we've got the walking. And what we've got here is a sample of Christian McBride playing the first two A's on Cherokee. Now, Cherokee is usually played very, very fast, and I'm not expecting you to necessarily play this exercise fast. I actually can't following this exact pattern. However, working on it will help you to get facility with two fingers, which is going to help with fast walking. To sort of demonstrate that, here is a version of one course of rhythm changes where the great Ulysses Owens on drums and the wonderful pianist Oscar Perez are accompanying me for one of my books. So here's one course of a very fast rhythm changes at 360 beats per minute. 2, 3, 4. Next is a 360 BPM version of Cherokee itself, which we're looking at here, but I couldn't find a recorded play along that was that fast. So I took the iReal Pro and sped it up to 360, and it sounds weird. However, I still wanted to give you an example of what it sounds like. So now let's take a listen to Christian's actual line following this exact pattern rather than what I was doing, just improvising which fingers I was using. Let's use his exact pattern at a much, much slower tempo. Let's take a listen. 2, 3, 4. Next is something my drummer friend Justin Varnes, who is an amazing musician, educator, and person, something that he hit me to, and that is taking these paradiddle patterns and applying accents so that we sort of have rhythmic phrases. And so what we've got here on this page are some rhythmic phrases that he came up with. And he's adapted them himself, and he calls them continuous eighths exercises. So on this page, exercise number 1 is in and itself this own kind of rhythmic pattern. 2 is its own, 3 is its own. And then number 4 is a combination of 1, 2, and 3. So let's take a listen of exercise 1, exercise 2, 3, and then 4, which is a combination. Remember that you do want to repeat these many times if you can. You'll notice on the second page of Justin's exercises, he's got a series of things where you've got 2 lines of those icons indicating which finger. The idea is that on the first pass, you're playing the top line. On the second pass, you're playing the bottom line. So let's take a listen to an example of that with number 9 here, the double paradiddle 2-bar cycle. Finally, I've gotten leveled up to an example that I came up with of applying what Justin did even further, making it even sort of more challenging and providing new obstacles or new hurdles for us to get through. And that is to apply those rhythmic patterns to actual notes. I chose phrases from real solos from great master musicians that match up with the length of Justin's phrases. However, the accents don't necessarily line up with the most musical accents that one would make with the original recording or what you might choose as a real musical accent. But that hurdle in and of itself allows us to go even deeper into sort of connecting our brain with our hand and so on. So let's take a listen first to just a snippet of Just You, Just Me from Oscar Pettiford, a little phrase from there. Next, number 4 is Charlie Parker's Clown Stance. This is just an excerpt of this melody, and it is quite a challenge to play. If we were to play it up to tempo, not following the way he played it, not following the articulation he did exactly, it sounds a little bit like this. That's tough to do. There's a lot going on there and it's sort of long, right? So let's slow it way, way down and try to follow this particular paradiddle series of patterns and try to follow the accents and the exact notes and so on and so forth. It's quite a challenge. Check it out. Finally, we've got Doug Watkins on Moritat, and this is just a little phrase from his solo. I think it's really neat in that it cycles back to itself. Like, it just sounds like the second bar really wants to go back to the first bar, so it makes sense that you would repeat it over and over again. And several other of these examples do that too. So let's take a quick listen and a little close-up. I hope this was helpful for you today. I know that it's a little bit different than what you might be dealing with right now. I have found it very, very challenging and really, really helpful to warm up this way because I'm still learning how to do some of the stuff that I set out for myself. So when I'm working on it for any length of time, I found that my right hand is really, really strong. I feel very confident about what I do. I feel very connected to the instrument. And so I would recommend that you do some of this if you are feeling like you want to increase your ability with your right hand. Thanks for joining me today. I do hope it was helpful. Like, subscribe, check for the PDF. Always remember, straight ahead and strive for tone.